For decades, a country could solve its security problem in one simple way. Write a check, import the weapons, and trust somebody else to keep the factory line running. But Eastern Europe looked at that model and saw a trap. Because in a real war, the most important weapon is not the tank, the fighter jet, or the rocket launcher. It's the ability to repair it, replace it, upgrade it, and keep producing more when the first wave is gone. That is why so many Eastern European countries did something that looked more difficult, more expensive, and more political. They stopped asking only, "What can we buy?" and started asking, "What can we build here?" Poland pushed for tanks and howitzers to be produced domestically, not just imported. Romania turned a big armored vehicle deal into local production and technology transfer. Czech companies moved from selling ammunition to licensing production inside Ukraine itself. This was not just procurement, it was a fight for industrial sovereignty. Eastern Europe has a memory that Western Europe often forgot. These countries spent decades inside the Soviet system, where allies could become liabilities overnight, where equipment often came with political strings, and where the state that supplied your weapons could also control your options. After the Cold War, many of these states joined NATO and bought Western equipment, but they didn't forget the old lesson. Dependence is dangerous. That lesson became much sharper after Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, which leaders in the region described as a brutal reminder that peace is not guaranteed forever. The result was a defense policy built around deterrence, but also around resilience. If war comes, a country that only imports weapons can run out fast. A country that can build, assemble, upgrade, and repair them at home can keep fighting longer. That is the logic behind the region's recent choices. And that is where the story gets interesting, because Eastern Europe did not reject foreign technology. It did the opposite. It tried to capture it. It wanted licenses, factories, training, local supply chains, maintenance hubs, and domestic expertise. In other words, it did not want a shopping relationship. It wanted an industrial relationship. The countries leading this shift understood that buying a weapon is only the first step. The real power lies in the ecosystem around it. Spare parts, ammunition, software updates, barrel replacements, maintenance crews, and the ability to surge production when the strategic environment changes. That is why technology transfer became almost as important as the weapon itself. Countries like Poland, Romania, and Ukraine are staring down an existential threat. They are spending historic, unprecedented percentages of their GDP on defense. Yet, when the world's biggest defense contractors came knocking, offering the most advanced, ready-to-ship missiles and armor, Eastern Europe did something shocking. They said no. Or, more accurately, they said, "We won't just buy your weapons. We want the blueprints. We want the licenses. And we are going to build them ourselves." The West had fundamentally deindustrialized its military base. The United States and Europe had spent 30 years optimizing for efficiency, not capacity. They built just-in-time supply chains. When Eastern Europe tried to buy weapons, it hit a brick wall. Want to buy the American M142 HIMARS, the rocket system that devastated Russian supply lines? Great, get in line. The waiting list is years long. Want a German Leopard 2 tank? Germany's own military barely had enough operational tanks for itself, let alone enough to export in a hurry. No country exemplifies this strategy better than Poland. Poland borders Belarus, the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad, and Ukraine. They are the absolute front line of NATO. In recent years, Poland announced military spending that made the rest of Europe's jaw drop, aiming for over 4% of their GDP. They wanted to build the largest land army in Europe. But when Poland went shopping for the ultimate main battle tank, they didn't just go to Washington, and they actively bypassed Berlin. So, Poland looked east, all the way to South Korea. South Korea is essentially an island geographically, surrounded by the sea and a hostile North Korea. Because of this, They built a massive, self-reliant, hyper-efficient defense industry. When Poland knocked on the door of Hyundai Rotem, the makers of the K2 Black Panther tank, the Koreans offered a deal that the Americans and Germans simply wouldn't match. The deal was staggering. Poland agreed to acquire 1,000 K2 tanks. But here's the kicker. Only the first 180 would be built in South Korea and shipped over to plug immediate gaps. The remaining 820 tanks, they will be the K2PL variant heavily modified to Polish specifications and entirely manufactured inside Poland by Polish workers using transferred South Korean technology. An offset agreement means if we are going to give you billions of our taxpayers' dollars, you have to offset that cost by investing in our economy. By insisting on licenses and local production, Poland ensures that the billions of dollars they spend don't just vanish overseas. Poland isn't alone. Moving further south down the NATO flank and you hit Romania, a country holding down the vital Black Sea region. Romania faced the same dilemma. They had a massive fleet of aging Soviet-era armored personnel carriers. They needed a modern wheeled infantry fighting vehicle to protect their troops. They chose the Piranha V made by General Dynamics European Land Systems. But again, Romania drew a hard line in the sand. They told General Dynamics, "We will buy your vehicle, but only if you let us build it here." This gives the Romanian Ministry of Defense total control over the maintenance life cycle. If a vehicle takes a hit or needs an engine overhaul, it goes back to Bucharest, not across the continent. Furthermore, Romania has aggressively pursued domestic production for smaller munitions and drones, and is currently in deep negotiations to apply the same localized production model to the next generation of air defense systems and even more armored vehicles. They are using their defense budget to rebuild their domestic heavy industry, which had severely decayed since the end of the Cold War. But if Poland and Romania are doing this to prevent a war, Ukraine is doing it to survive one. Ukraine realized a terrifying truth. Charity is not a strategy. You cannot win a multi-year industrial war if you have to beg foreign parliaments for every single 155mm artillery shell. But they didn't just want to build old Soviet stuff. They needed NATO standard gear. To do that, they needed licenses. Enter Rheinmetall, the colossal German arms manufacturer. In a historic and highly dangerous move, Rheinmetall didn't just agree to sell weapons to Ukraine. They agreed to build a factory inside Ukraine. What we are witnessing is the death of the old way of doing military business. The days when a few massive corporations in the US, Britain, France, and Germany monopolized the production of advanced weaponry are over. Eastern Europe has realized that true sovereignty isn't just a line on a map. It's an assembly line. The center of gravity in European defense is shifting east. Through shrewd negotiations, aggressive offset agreements, and a relentless demand for technology transfers and manufacturing licenses, they are becoming the forge of the new Iron Curtain. They refuse to just buy weapons, because they know that in the modern era, you don't just buy your freedom, you have to build it yourself. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.